My name is Barbara Chow, and I will be your presenter today. I want to start first by giving thanks to COMPLA. I'd also like to thank La Universidad Nacional de Asunción and Valentina Canese. All right, the title of my presentation is The Struggle of Undocumented Students in U.S. Schools, Reality versus Fiction, and the Educational Movement Essential for Their Academic Success both in the classroom and in the future. When I started this research, I was at Scripps College in Claremont, California. And over the decades, this research has continued at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. Now, I'm happy to say that this research continues on. The work is essential. I want to bring your attention to a QR code that I have available for anyone who would like access to this presentation. All right, here's the objective of this presentation. We will collectively debunk the myths and misconceptions regarding undocumented students in the U.S. schools and their path to achieve the American dream of higher education. Let me start first by defining what is an undocumented student. Undocumented students are students who are not born in the U.S. but immigrated, live, and attend school in the U.S. and are not U.S. citizens or legal residents. The fact is that there are millions of undocumented students, undocumented children in our schools, with more than 120,000 undocumented students graduating from U.S. high schools each year. Among this group, Mexican and Central American undocumented students, which account for the majority of undocumented students within U.S. schools, are even less likely to achieve high school graduation, much less a higher education degree. So who are undocumented students? On this slide, you're going to see several. I have 5 individuals. Sofia Campos, she was born in Peru, brought to the U.S. at the age of 6. We've got Ali Wayne, born in Senegal and brought to the U.S. at the age of 9. Yu Wong, born in South Korea, brought to the U.S. at the age of 11. Daniela Sada, born in Mexico, brought to the U.S. at the age of 1. Rhea Lambie, born in Belize and brought to the U.S. at the age of 8. All of these individuals are current advocates for undocumented students. They have all come out with their legal status and their position, and so that is why you actually have pictures. But most undocumented students, you will never know who is undocumented and who is not. But the data doesn't lie. So let's start with the first misconception. Misconception number 1. All bilingual and multilingual students are undocumented, and most have entered the U.S. as teenagers. Here's the facts, statistics, and reality. There are over 2 million undocumented migrant children in the U.S. who attend U.S. public school as current elementary and secondary students. There are over 11 million students from immigrant-headed households. As of 2021, nearly 5,000 plus undocumented children are crossing the U.S. border monthly, with no parental figure and no family connections coming with them. Misconception number 2. Undocumented students live in households with predominantly illegal family members. The fact is that there are more than 22 million U.S. citizens in mixed status households. Among these numbers, nearly 1 in 10 U.S. citizens under the age of 18 years old and currently in the U.S. school system are in blended families that often have both undocumented and naturalized citizens within the same household, as well as in the same school system. This has resulted in multiple young people in the same family with varying levels of legal status, regardless of their academic performance, behavioral conduct, or their standardized test scores. This accounts to pressure. It accounts to emotional instability. There are so many levels of strain on the family due to the varying of legal status, whether it's from the parents or whether it's from the siblings. Misconception number 3. Undocumented students all come from dysfunctional homes with limited academic experience in U.S. school systems. While being from a one-parent household versus a two-parent household varies, just like with any other typical student, Dysfunctionality is not a result or a condition of legal status. Despite this, the facts are clear on education. A majority of undocumented students have actually spent much of their life within the U.S. school system from K through 12. Misconception number 4. Undocumented learners excel using the same academic and psychological strategies that are used with non-undocumented students. While it is true that there are a variety of strategies, from academic to behavioral to psychological, that are beneficial to all students, it is clear that undocumented students are dealing with obstacles that are much greater than oftentimes understood. In addition to applying diverse academic strategies, educators must be aware of the intense pressures and stresses facing our undocumented students, such as familial deportation, mixed status households, mixed proficiency language abilities, and lastly, an academic or employment future that is full of uncertainties and pitfalls. Misconception number 5. Undocumented students are considered as foreign students and are not eligible for in-state tuition. Undocumented students are oftentimes socially considered to be foreign students and international students, when in reality, the majority have spent their entire academic experience within the U.S. school system. These kids are as American as they come. Many of them have spent their entire K through 12 existence in American schools. Among the 130,000 who are able to achieve high school graduation, the reality is that less than 10% of them will actually have the opportunity to attend any form of a 2-year institution, a college or a university. Misconception number 6. Undocumented students can take dual enrollment classes during high school to achieve college credit. This is something that as a society, we have pushed in the last 2 decades. We have students from every corner of the United States trying to take dual enrollment college courses early, very early, in order to spur on their university experience. Although 90% of American high schools offer dual enrollment, the reality is that undocumented students cannot, I repeat, cannot take dual enrollment courses in high school due to their illegal status and lack of a social security number in a public university, a community college, or a 2-year or 4-year college. However, undocumented students can possibly take a course at a private college that makes an exception for legal status. They will unfortunately have to pay international rates. So even though 90% of schools do offer dual enrollment or concurrent courses at their local colleges and universities, undocumented students are ineligible to apply. Now, let me also preface this by saying this is more challenging depending on where the undocumented student lives. There are many states, many of which are in the South, the southern United States, where there are things at play, there are laws at play that really make an impact by prohibiting these students. Now, there are other immigrant-friendly states who do try to make a way for students to have these experiences of higher education within their high school experience. Unfortunately, as a federal law and as an experience nationwide within the U.S., undocumented students cannot take dual enrollment classes. Let's move on to misconception number 7. Undocumented students have a pathway to college, just like any other typical student. That is not the case. Undocumented students can legally attend college in the U.S., but they face numerous barriers that are both legal and financial, making it almost impossible for college to be achieved. Undocumented students are, in fact, ineligible for federal financial aid. In fact, many states have made it so they are also ineligible for in-state financial aid as well. This leads us back to various states within the United States that have forced this issue and are putting up barriers for undocumented students to achieve any form of higher education. Students basically have three options to achieve higher education: getting admission and financial help from a private college that does not receive any federal funding, returning to their native foreign country and applying for admission as an international student and paying the international tuition rate, which is 2 to 3 times the in-state rate, or lastly, abandon the dreams of higher education altogether and get a job that pays under the table since they are not eligible to even work legally. Misconception number 8. Undocumented students cannot apply for FAFSA like other undocumented students. Undocumented students can apply for financial aid. However, a Social Security number is needed for financial aid to actually be awarded. Therefore, undocumented students are encouraged to apply for FAFSA and state aid using the code 000000000 and are shown the amount that they could have received if they had a valid Social Security. This ultimately does more harm than good emotionally for these students. The dream of further education is literally presented to them and taken away at the same time. These students, they're shown a potential dream and it is ripped out from under them. And unfortunately, the state and the federal government, they often encourage them to use that code just so there are numbers of the number of students who are undocumented that are trying to access federal funds in order to continue higher education. Let's get on to misconception number 9. Undocumented students are not eligible for any financial academic scholarships. Contrary to popular belief, there are a few private universities and organizations that have attempted to bridge the gap by providing financial scholarship opportunities to undocumented students who can get admittance into academic institutions such as the United Negro College Fund, the Mexican American Legal Defense and Educational Fund, the Salvadorian American Leadership and Educational Fund, among others. There are ways, but they are few and far in between, and many students do not have access to these. They do not know about these. They're often not encouraged to even apply because the odds are very limited. Misconception number 10. Undocumented students cannot get a GED or a General Education Development Diploma. Although this varies by state, and that is so important, undocumented students can enroll in the GED program, but must provide a Social Security number or a letter from the Social Security Administration stating that they are ineligible for a Social Security number. This poses a problem for both undocumented students and families who shy away from government institutions being aware of their legal status. It has also been found that several jurisdictions, counties, and local programs are finding ways around this system to get undocumented students to achieve the GED, although it is clear that they cannot use it for higher education purposes due to their status. I know I've given you a lot to think about. These issues they're huge issues within the United States, especially now in today's political climate. They may be issues in other countries too, I know they are. But I want to thank you for standing up for undocumented students' right to a higher education. Creating a pathway to academic success does begin with each and every one of you, and I encourage you to help in any way that you can. And I thank you for listening to this presentation.